Thank you, Anami, and thank you to the esteemed panel. Good morning, everyone. We've been talking, I guess, about the technology for the last hour or so. The kind of what I wanted to do in this session was to set the context in terms of the kind of influence that we see of technology in BFSI, and then ask each of the panelists in terms of how they see it in their point of view. So, as Srini and the previous speakers pointed out, uh, there are three main trends that I see, and that's what everybody has been talking about as well. The first one is, of course, the adoption of digital. The second is the use of data in terms of how BFSI is using data to enhance their services, whether it be consumers or B2B, business to business. And thirdly, the whole automation of things and the AI and ML that is coming into the workplace, especially in the operations area, and how that is influencing the employees' adoption of technology. They used to say necessity is the mother of invention. I would want to change it to necessity is the mother of acceleration. If you look at in the last month or so, last few months, the COVID has really accelerated transformation. I've been interacting with many CIOs, and many of them have been saying that they did what they thought they were going to do in the next 3 years in almost 3 months' time. So there is a real urgency, primarily because of the fact that both our customers and our employees have to work, and our partners have to work remote, and therefore the prominence of digital channel, and that's probably what we'll take first, to service our customers has gone up tremendously. We have seen that most banks started off by digitizing the most obvious things or the most easy things onto the web and the mobile. But more and more people are thinking about how do I do everything that I do in my branches and everything that I do in the physical world in the digital channel as well. So why don't we start with Sunil? If you can kind of talk about what you think about this digital transformation that's going on in BFSI and how it's been accelerated in the last few months. And then maybe we can talk to Sumit and Dipu about the same topic.
Sure,
With
sure.
reference to customers, Sunil, first.
Sure. Thank you, Shri. Good morning, everybody. Happy to be in the panel. So, Shri, fully agree with the priorities that you mentioned. Accelerated digitalization is absolutely key for us. Specifically to the context of the European banking system, not only from our customers, our other counterparties, our other stakeholders, but also from our regulators. Surprisingly, and other compliance bodies, because really I think they're extremely sensitive to manual channels, and in the past that has been one of the let's say challenges that the entire system has faced, and they are pushing many banks nowadays to accelerate their digitalization as well. Of course, apart from the role that the crisis has pushed all the CIOs, as you mentioned, huge acceleration, but the regulators and the compliance bodies are also pushing on that topic. So yeah, we see a huge push towards digitalization of the channels. So a lot of focus on the core platforms of the bank, be it the core banking for retail or the complex trading, settlement, the risk applications for wholesale banking. We are seeing huge transformation related to them, and more than ever, I think the architecture of those systems to support APIs, to be modular, to be able to seamlessly interact with the external world are really key for this transformation. We also see from a customer point of view, with our other stakeholders and the other banks that we integrate, a huge push towards digitalizing, and it sort of connects to the minimal ops or a no ops type of a mindset, to completely transform the back office and the middle office processes that we have. Banks like ours, and I guess most of the banks have huge complex middle office and back office processes. And so far, as a GCOE in India, we were playing a key role in running those processes. But now the demand is to redesign those processes and we are playing a key role in digitalizing them. Okay? So we are using design thinking patterns, design service design frameworks to redesign them, end to end. We involve all our stakeholders, consumers, and of course the middle office and the back office operators in that process to completely redesign them end to end. Okay, just to take a concrete example of some of these redesign and massive digitalization, we have looked at our KYC process, which I think most of you will know, a hugely digital process when that has been completely transformed now using OCR, machine learning, and pattern recognition to completely make it an end-to-end seamless experience. What was a huge email intensive, customer intensive process is now an extremely transformed digital process, not only reducing significant error and improving the accuracy, but also saving a lot of capacity and a lot of cost in terms of manpower on our side. Finally, speaking of data, which is the glue that puts all of this together, there is a huge focus on data quality, and that is really what makes the entire setup run. So that's briefly from my side, Sri, on what I wanted to add towards the accelerated digitalization
That's
that
great.
we spoke
Thanks.
about.
Thanks, Sunil. That is interesting, and I'm sure there is a lot of opportunity to use AI and machine learning in KYC process, especially. Sumit, we look forward to your comments on how the technology has changed customer interaction from your perspective.
Sure, thank you. As I say, there are decades when nothing happens, and then there are weeks when decades happen. And I think that's where we are living in today, because there are so many opportunities for us, as we've been hearing over the last few days in the Zinnov Confluence from various speakers. And I look at it as saying that we've always had technology, and technology continues to evolve. But today's situation has actually accelerated that, because always there is some resistance to change, and people are always hesitant about adopting technology and questioning it. But today's unprecedented world, the VUCA world, the volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, has really made a lot of people a lot more open to adopting technology and adopting new ways of doing things. And the way I look at it, there are three big areas for us to focus on in our centers. One, of course, is the workplace itself. And I know a lot has been said on that in the past few sessions as well, whether it's work from home, it's the agility, flexibility. That's one. The second is a workforce itself. Given the fact that we are now working from home, and some of those boundaries of locations go away. So this should provide us an opportunity for us to tap talent, which is completely location agnostic. And third is a work type, and that definitely is changing. As we service our stakeholders and clients, as the business models change, and for us in the insurance industry, we are constantly looking at new ways to serve our clients with new products, new solutions, new ways to service and connect with them. And for that, the responsiveness of our centers becomes really important. Within, of course, our centers, we've been driving a lot of digital transformation. So things like RPA, AI, ML, we have lots of projects, initiatives running. And we actually track our workforce by saying how much of our workforce is human and how much is a digital workforce. So those are some of the areas that we have adopted technology and continue to do so. At AXA XL, innovation and technology is very key. In fact, AXA has been recognized as one of the top most innovative companies. And I'd like to share some examples that we have introduced in helping and supporting our clients and customers, as you mentioned, Sri. So very recently, just last week, AXA announced a partnership with the Lloyd's business in actually joining a syndicate where we will be addressing the risk that is associated with storage and transfer of vaccines. So as you can imagine, in today's scenario, it's not just about the COVID-19, but really when will the vaccine be developed, how will it be distributed, and how will it actually reach out? So AXA XL has joined the Lloyd's syndicate, and we will provide a lot of risk management solutions using a lot of data, a lot of our technology to make sure that we cover for some of those risks and make sure that vaccines travel safely through the global network. Another example is, our risk management team. As a process, our teams go out and do a lot of risk assessment at our client sites. But obviously, because of the lockdown, this has restricted our risk engineers to go to these sites. So we actually set up what we call a remote risk dialogue, whereby our risk engineers did a virtual site visit and did the assessment and help our clients with the remedies and solutions. And we definitely see this going forward.
Thank you, Sunil. That was interesting, especially that working remote and how do you do this risk assessments remote, etc. It's a challenging question. And one of the audience questions that's come up is with respect to how do you calculate ROI on technology investments. And I think it kind of ties in with the fact that from Mphasis, we do a lot of interaction with customers, and customers say, I need to accelerate my digital journey, but where do I find the money, right? How do I measure the ROI for that technology investment? How do you look at that, and also how has technology affected your customers' journey? Would be something interesting to hear.
Sure. Thank you, Shri, and good morning, everyone. I think when you are the last speaker, on the first question, right, then, a lot of theoretical underpinning is already underway. So let me dive, directly into two use cases, right, and actually demonstrate, how we have leveraged technology to change life, for our customers. As Shri, as most of you would be aware, the claim is the moment of truth, the insurance business. So we picked, travel insurance, and of course we picked it some time back. Today people are not traveling, therefore even travel insurance, is also in, in the freezer, right? But imagine, somebody who is, taking an international flight, right? And let's say the flight is delayed. Typically, you go through a lot of hassles, right? You have to basically rebook your flight. You have to rearrange your meetings at the destination. Plan your hotel bookings, cab bookings, all over. All over. You got to go through the rigmarole all over again. Now, at that time, if you remember that, you can actually, file a claim, with an insurance company for trip delay, right? Then typically earlier, insurance companies would ask for some proof, right? Give some information that the flight is delayed, photocopies of your documents, right? Whether it's your passport or boarding pass or whatever. So we said, why don't we, revolutionize this? So what we did, we deployed blockchain, and using blockchain, we would get immutable proof, that the flight is delayed. Then we said, once we get to know that the flight is delayed, forget about digitizing it. We said, why should the customer, even notifies that, that is eligible for a claim? So as the customer is sitting in the airport, right, and as I said, as he's already hassled, he gets a notification from us. We understand your flight is delayed. This is the amount transferred to your amount, to your bank account. It's a clear wow, right? And one which would not have been possible, without deployment of technology. Let me give you one more example. We leveraged IoT, and IoT has been deployed, in quite a few markets globally. But we were among the first ones of the blocks in the Indian context. What we also did is we leveraged it, keeping in mind the nuances of the Indian market. Now, in India, as you are aware, right, people can afford drivers, unlike in the US, or in the US, right, because they come at 1/20th of the cost. Now, let's take a working couple. Both are working in the office and they're worried about their children, right? Because the driver has to pick them from home, drop them to school, and then drop them back home, right? So we launched a feature called geofencing, using IoT. So through this, what happens is the parents get an alert if the car goes off the regular path. This again would not have been possible, without deploying technology. So the use of technology has not only accelerated, digital transformation, but it's also brought in features, which were not possible, prior to the deployment of that technology. So just, two of the many use cases, where we have deployed technology. Now, coming to your point on ROI, Shri, see, ROI typically, there are two aspects to it. One is a software aspect, and the other is, the harder aspect. When I say harder aspect, I mean in terms of, real numbers, right? When you sit with your CFO and you convince him that the CBA is positive, right? But I'll talk about the soft aspect because obviously I cannot give away financial numbers, right? So when we launched this blockchain-driven claim settlement process, when we launched, this IDO-driven, geofencing feature, apart from a host of features, and we got a net promoter score study done in the market to an independent agency, we figured out, that we were best in class, significantly, ahead of our competitors. And I think when customers, start to recognize, you as in the entity, as an industry leading player, which has leveraged technology for the benefit of customers, right? That's when you realize that the ROI has come. Let me give you one more example of ROI, because we're discussing transformation, amidst, the pandemic. And I like the way Sumit put it, that this is a time when decades happened in weeks. So we embarked on a massive communication campaign, when the shutdown happened, because call center shut down virtually overnight and everybody began working from home. So we brought to the notice of our customers, the presence of our digital assets. We were able to migrate our customers to digital assets, and two metrics. One is, even today, 80% of our customers, get service to digital assets, and our customer grievance ratio came down by 90%. So that's how we've been measuring ROI.
That's amazing. That's a very good measure. I think the key messages that I got out of this in terms of digital transformation is that it's not only essential for us to do normal business, but it also enhances the kind of experience that you can give to our customers. Right. From Diku's example, or reduce the errors and make it easy for customers to onboard, in Sunil's example, and Sumit gave us some examples as well. It's great to understand that. The second aspect which I wanted to cover was the impact of digital on our employees. Right? When I started work, and probably some of you when you started work, the technology in our offices was much, much better than the technology that we had in our homes. But today, for a millennial employee, the technology in the office seems to be like ancient, right? We still have some green screens. We still communicate through email, while they are communicating through video conferencing. They are watching shows together, even though they may be miles apart. They are playing games with each other. So the technology that they're experiencing on a day-to-day life is much, much superior to what they typically encounter in an enterprise. So given that, and given the fact that there is so many tools that are available today, how is digital kind of influencing, how you present your employees with opportunities to work in a better environment is something that I would like to hear from all of you. Any of you can volunteer to start, and we can start with that.
Maybe I'll go very quickly, Shri. So it is absolutely true. The employees of today are exposed to a tremendous amount of technological, innovations and tool sets, which I think some enterprises, and especially the financial sector, are probably a little bit slow to adapt because of complex expectations on security, data, etc., etc. So, but it's changing. We see an emerging trend, and I think we were at SocGen we have adopted it of bring your own device type of a policies. Wherein we give the flexibility in many cases for the employees to bring in their own smart devices, their own laptops, and once we create a partitioned environment where they can do the work that they have to do for the enterprise within that device, and the rest of the device they can use it for their own personal experiences. So that's one solution wherein we are trying to bring the private world and the professional world a little bit closer. But on the positive side, that expectation, especially in terms of our younger employees, to be much more digitally advanced, is putting a lot of positive pressure within the enterprise for us to adapt new things at a much rapid pace. So I think we are welcoming that pressure, because I think that is really helping us accelerate some of our decision making vis-a-vis some of the new trends and tool sets that we see in the market.
I'm happy to go next. So I think, as Sunil covered, there's a lot of technology today that we are using to communicate with our colleagues. So when this lockdown happened, of course, our people quickly were able to transition to the new ways of working from home, because everybody had laptops and we have very robust connectivity, VPN networks. But we also use a lot of technology to connect and engage with our peoples, whether it was virtual town halls, video calls, meetings. And the fact that our leadership or a lot of people globally were not traveling actually made a lot more easier to connect, whether with our stakeholders, clients, or even our employees. Even during this lockdown phase, we continue to onboard our new colleagues, and we ran all our training sessions virtually, helping and connecting with them. We also introduced for healthcare telemedicine some of those facilities, because obviously if people can't go out, how do they to help them with their health safety? And a lot of tips we gave to our colleagues on how to work from home, what's the best way to connect up, how do you balance your work pressure as well as personal household chores, which we know a lot of people had to do. So provided a lot of flexibility. And the focus was a lot of empowerment and flexibility for our colleagues, making a lot of these virtual engagement communication channels available. In fact, we have a lot of social forums and clubs who do different kind of activities to engage with our colleagues. All of them went virtual as well. So instead of having sports tournaments or celebrating festivals or other events, they started doing a lot of virtual connects and events and asking people to contribute stories, contribute videos, create some banners and quizzes. So a lot of the engagement, the connect, giving the comfort to our colleagues, we were able to do by connecting with them virtually. And our networks and our technology completely supported that.
Okay.
So Shri, since you specifically spoke about the impact of technology on employees, I just need to take you back in time, to the days of BlackBerry. I remember at that time, it was not given to everyone, and I remember a CEO saying, look at the situation. The employee wants to put in extra hours because he'll get access to email from home, and if you don't give it to him, he complains. He says, I can't have a better situation from productivity point of view. So from the days of, aspiring to have a BlackBerry, because that meant, you were, basically senior enough. I remember people loving that signature sent from my BlackBerry handheld device, right? So that brought work home, right? Then after that, what happened when with the spread of smartphones, then to the point that Sumit made, when also BYOD became popular, then home came to office. The reason I'm saying is because as employees began accessing WhatsApp and social media, you can't maintain those strict boundaries, right? You could get a message from a colleague, you could also get a message from a family member. So I think boundaries became blurred. And thirdly, during the lockdown era, right, just to the point that Sumit made, I think technology really helped us. On the one hand, while we were maintaining, social and physical distancing, it really helped us maintain digital and emotional connect. And I'll just give you a simple example. Earlier, when we did employee engagement in the office, only employees were involved. We converted adversity into opportunity by now moving to family engagement. And I'll give you just one example and then, close what I have to say. One weekend, we launched a MasterChef competition. We opened it up to not only our colleagues, but even their family members. And it was wonderful to see on WhatsApp, recipes from all over India made by somebody's mother, somebody's sister, somebody's wife, somebody's cousin. And the entire family got, all families got involved. And our employee engagement scores during the lockdown era, when people are working from home, were higher than those when we were in office. So technology helped us not just survive, but also thrive.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think one of the challenges that we have when we all working from remote is the water cooler conversations, because
Absolutely.
most meetings are agenda driven now rather than random conversations.
Yes.
Leads to a lot of cross fertilization, and these kind of events probably will help in doing that. I have a few questions from the audience. One of the questions is, how does this digital innovation affect your vendor strategies? Are you looking more at outcome-based models? Are you looking at how do you engage with vendors like ourselves? Given that there's an acceleration of things, it's not like old days when you can do your definition, RFP it out, and get the response, and go on for 1 year waiting for the system to be ready. How is it driving? Maybe Dipu, you can start with you, and then we can go around.
Thank you, Shri. So, Shri, I'll break this into two parts. One is transformation and innovation. And the difference between transformation and innovation is when you talk transformation, you're talking about large scale deployment, right? Which is enterprise wide. And you're talking about innovation, you're talking about point solutions, right? Where you're, let's say, you're quicker to market. You deploy something in weeks transformation, is a multi-year program. On large transformations, we still continue the traditional route because obviously these are very expensive, projects, and with large players like yourself, right? We get into the RFP, do a techno-commercial evaluation, and then we go along. But the key there is to be nimble because we cannot sign up for all the requirements right up front. There are customer changes, there are situations like COVID-19, completely unprecedented. There are regulatory changes, right? So how do you stay nimble through the entire program? Now, coming to innovations, right? As I said, what we do now, there are typically two kinds of startups. One is startups who basically challenge you. A typical case is Lemonade in the US, which typically challenges the established behemoths. And the other is startups who basically pick parts of the value chain and they come out with a value prop and then they ride piggyback on a big player and then take it to scale. So what we do across the value chain, wherever it makes sense, we work with a relevant startup. And then let's say through a co-creation model, right? They get to work with a marquee name like us and they can get digital at scale because our customer base is bigger than the population of UK or any of these Western European countries. And from our perspective, we get a solution which we did not have in-house. So it serves as a win-win. So whether it's our blockchain solution, whether it's our IoT solution, or whether it's AI ML for our bot, we have worked with, a range of startups. That's how, we have approached it.
Okay, thanks. Sunil, there's another question on, given that we are going so much on digital, do you see an increase in cyber attacks? What is the organization doing to secure itself in a much better fashion? And I started off by saying security is something that's fundamental. How does your organization view that?
Yes, no, that's a very good question, Shri. It is true that we see an increased attack or increased prevalence of security incidents during this crisis. So it's really the time to be double cautious, within the firm, within all our employee base vis-a-vis security. We see increased attempts at social engineering, phishing, attempted attacks on various different access points for us. Like any large organization, we have a very strong security team that really helps the bank be secure. But at the same time, we have doubled down during this crisis to make our employees aware of the extra risk that we all carry during these times and the need to be doubly cautious, especially for social engineering, phishing attempts, etc. within the organization. We believe employees, a very well-aware employee is probably the strongest barrier that we can have against security incidents. And towards that, we also have internal phishing campaigns wherein the employee is not aware that it is an internal one, but they receive an email which looks like an external email and entices them, and when they actually fall prey to that, they are given assessment on what they did wrong, etc. So we have very good internal tests, internal trials, etc. to make the employees aware of it. In fact, even during remote working, as we log into the systems, the first banner that comes in is for people to be aware of security incidents, social engineering. So a lot of work on that aspect, but indeed it is true that it is an important aspect, especially during these times of a lot of remote working happening, across the entire world.
Thanks, Sunil. We have probably just a couple of minutes left, Sumit. There's one question with respect to how does an organization think about the right mix in terms of in-house versus outsource? What are your thoughts on that?
In terms of technology?
In terms of services, it could be technology, back office work, whatever it is.
I believe, and again, this is my personal opinion, there would be many aspects to look at, right? One would look at the quality of service, one would look at the cost effectiveness, one would look at the risk element, one would look at what is permitted from a regulatory perspective, because sometimes regulations and what the governments want, there are restrictions of what can be outsourced and what cannot be outsourced. And these are some of the considerations that anybody would look at: cost, quality, risk, regulatory framework, and sometimes even things about speed to market. And I know Dipu mentioned that as well, because sometimes rather than trying to build, it may be better to borrow or to buy or to co-create. And within AXA XL, we believe a lot in co-creation as well. So we believe that we work very closely with a lot of partners for co-creation, because we believe that that's something which can help the business, it can help coming to the market faster and get the best of everything.
Thank you so much. I think that's the amount of time we had. I mean, I wish we could go on. It was very interesting, especially the examples that each of you brought to the table. Thank you for your inputs and hand it over back to Anvi.
Thank you, Shri.